I was caught up in a moment that is about to happen. And I looked at the Western clothing and the Middle Eastern clothing, and I heard a voice saying this. And as he said, I got chills all over me. And I became fearful, which I don't believe is from the Spirit of God. But because I was in the presence of so much evil, that I literally went cold as I heard the voice saying, the hand of the betrayer is on the table. The hand of the betrayer is on the table.
Today, U.S. Special Envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, is traveling to Israel to meet with its Prime Minister and military chief of staff. Tensions with Iran escalated following recent widespread anti-government protests in the country. Arab states bordering the Persian Gulf are working to organize potential talks with the Iranians ahead at the end of the week.
We have some breaking news coming out right now. U.S. Central Command says it has shot down an Iranian drone that was, quote, aggressively approaching a U.S. aircraft carrier, saying hours later, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard harassed a U.S. merchant ship in the Strait of Hormuz. Today's escalation comes as the Trump administration continues its pressure campaign on Iran, positioning warships near the pivotal shipping route, warning it needs to strike a deal on its nuclear development program or face strikes from those warships.
President Trump is urging Iran to abandon its nuclear program and make a deal.
I'd like to see a deal negotiated. I don't know that that's going to happen. Right now we're talking to them, we're talking to Iran, and if we could work something out, that'd be great. And if we can't, probably bad things would happen.
Welcome to Analysis. Today, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. Normally we do prophecy, and of course we're going to be doing that today, but Christy Desfontaine is joining us, and she had a look in our prophecy database and came across something very interesting that I had actually looked at many times before and forgotten about. But Christy found something interesting. And so what we're going to do today is we're not just going to look at prophecy, but we're going to look at how prophecy works over time. And, right now our headlines, as you just saw, are not small. There's a lot going on. We're watching rising tension around Iran, Israel, and the United States. With diplomacy happening, military posture changing, and leaders meeting behind closed doors. So we've got the Iran nuclear talks set for this Friday. And the United States posture is not timid on this. It's pressure plus diplomacy. And we have Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, along with Jared Kushner, that will be visiting Israel to meet with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And Israel's military leadership. And we have open reports of naval movement and drills in the region. So, Christy, are you there? Christy's joining me.
I am here indeed.
Today.
Hello.
Christy Desfontaine.
Hello, thank you so much.
Thank you for joining me, Christy.
Something that...
So, my dad,
Sorry, carry on.
Go ahead.
No, you go.
No, it's fine. Go ahead.
I was going to say the thing about your dad is he never just prophesied headlines. And when he did, we know this about him. We know he wasn't coming from a place of this deep knowledge of geopolitics. I say this all the time because it's so important to know that this is not somebody who was obsessively studying that. This man was really, really hearing from God. And he really did prophesy spiritual dynamics. That's something that was so incredible. Donne, that's what we're looking at today. I know that you were kind of just going to explain to the people a little bit about it being from March 2010, which was really fascinating when we look back at it now.
Absolutely. And like I said, I had forgotten about that, the hand of the betrayer. At the table.
Yes.
But you found that the other day, and you saw something. And so I'm very interested to hear and to share with everybody today
Yeah.
what you are seeing.
Well, I think the reason that today is so important is because we're going to learn something, which is that prophecy is not a fortune cookie. It's a tapestry. And your dad used to say that, this is a tapestry. And, how prophecy often works is that God reveals spiritual forces first, not just events. And prophecy often speaks in patterns and cycles, not just dates. It gives warning and wisdom so God's people can pray, discern, and stand. And it can span years or decades even, because God sees the whole timeline at once. We only see the immediate or what happened in the past, but God sees the whole timeline at once. And that's why in scripture, we know this well, Amos 3:7, he does nothing without revealing it to his servants, the prophets. And so we're going to watch something now from 2010 that doesn't just predict, it frames what has unfolded. Leadership decisions, Middle Eastern negotiation tables, Israel under threat, and the way God positions deliverance. So we're going to get stuck into that more now, but right now, let's go to that prophecy from March 25th of 2010.
So what I saw this morning may have been a little bit frightening to me, but I'm now sharing it because I believe each one of you want to know what it is that God has planned. We're looking at the present political administration in this country, and people are saying, oh no, things are going to really get worse, God's going to judge us because of all this. Just stop thinking Democratic or liberal or conservative and Republican. Let's get our minds out of that just for tonight. Just listen to me. God knows what he's doing. For goodness sake, stop insulting him, and as if he doesn't know what the heck he's doing, and there's a president in charge, we're all going to fall to pieces now. God knows what he's doing. And even though it may affect us in certain ways, economically and socially, he still reigns, and his kingdom is in this nation. And that's what I want you to know. So
now this matters because it's the prophetic starting line, Donnie, of the last 16 years. In 2010, America was under Barack Obama. The country was politically divided, and people were saying, we're doomed. But your dad's first point was, it wasn't ignore politics, it was don't let politics become your God. Listen to God. And here's the prophetic principle. When leadership shifts, spiritual discernment must increase, not decrease. God remains sovereign, but we as his church have to stay alert. We can now look back at this and see that God was setting us up back in 2010 for victories in 2026. Try and imagine that. And that sets the stage for the next vision, because the next clip isn't about partisanship. That's something that's very, very important. Okay, this is not about partisanship and anything like that. It's about a table. And that table becomes a prophetic symbol for the last 16 years, negotiations, alliances, deals, betrayals, and hidden agendas. And so before we jump back in, we're going to anchor this in today with you, and there's going to be a couple slides that we're going to play for you. But right now what we have is this. Reuters is saying that US and Iran talks are scheduled in Istanbul with high-level envoys as Trump warns consequences if Iran doesn't move. Then we see from the Jerusalem Post, Steve Witkoff is traveling to Israel to meet Netanyahu and Israel's military chief in the middle of this pressure campaign. And Al Jazeera is showing reports of Iranian naval drills near the U.S. warships signal posturing in the region as tensions rise. Now, this is not just news. This could be the modern version of what Kim described, leaders around a table with Israel central to the plot. Now, watch what it is that he saw, and then we're going to come back. We're going back into this prophecy from March 25th of 2010. Now, this one's a couple minutes long, but stay with us. You don't want to miss it. Let's go to that now.
While I was in prayer, well, first of all, I took the kids to school, came back, and I went out in the garden to go and pray like I normally do. The first thing I do when I pray is I lift up my hands and I declare his great deeds. You have a choice when you come to God. You can proclaim his deeds or you can proclaim your needs. I suggest the first thing you do is to proclaim his deeds. And I did that. I said, Lord, you are incredible. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. And I was talking to him and speaking to him like I always do and thanking him for the good things that he's done and that he's going to do. I had a vision that was so clear to me. in a second, it just took a few seconds, I just saw this long table. A long table, and it was in the White House. I knew it. And around this table, I couldn't see faces, but I saw a variety of clothing, Western and Eastern clothing. And I didn't feel good. I didn't feel at peace about it. I was, and I'm not a fearful person, but I was frightened. I was caught up in a moment that is about to happen. And I looked at the Western clothing and the Middle Eastern clothing, and I heard a voice saying this. And as he said, I got chills all over me. And I became fearful, which I don't believe is from the Spirit of God. But because I was in the presence of so much evil, that I literally went cold as I heard the voice saying, "The hand of the betrayer is on the table. The hand of the betrayer is on the table." And when I heard that, I understood a lot of stuff. I'm a prophet, so I get visions, I hear things. This specific vision, there was so much clarity. I knew this was evil happening in the White House. Now, I'm the one that I've prophesied the first African-American president. I've prophesied some of the events that took place during the last decade, and now I find myself in the same boat. The betrayer is seated at the table of kings, celebrating with one thing in mind: to destroy God's people. To destroy God's people. I saw these kings sitting together and leaders with one thing in mind, not all of them, to destroy God's people. At that very same table sits the deliverer. See, a betrayer only draws near to the one who holds the key to deliverance. That's what happened with Jesus. Jesus held the key. He was the deliverer. Now, don't try and interpret that as, oh, so President Obama is the deliverer. No, I'm not saying that. But when you call yourself or you treat yourself as a Messiah, you will have betrayal. However, at that same table was a deliverer. So the reason that I saw this betrayal, I saw the betrayal, I knew that there was a deliverer at that table. Somebody that was going to expose this betrayal. Then I heard these words, which I got some clarification later on from an email that a dear friend sent me, not knowing this. And I heard these words: Haman was hanged on the very gallows that he had built for Mordecai. Haman was hanged on the very gallows that he had built for Mordecai. Okay, potential dangers, hidden opportunities, and victories are being played out in the White House and in palaces, both in Iran and Israel alike. I believe the betrayal and the plot is about Israel and the United States of America. The sad thing is that there are a lot of people that are falling for it in that group and that leadership. I saw a table of leaders and kings discussing matters in the Middle East. In fact, it seemed almost like a banqueting table where resolutions were made and a plot of the elimination of God's people. It was so disguised. As the plot to destroy God's people in Esther's day did not succeed, so this plot will not succeed. However, it will be very close. And you that are watching me, you will say, if you didn't have this revelation beforehand, you would say, oh my God, what is going to happen now? Do not fear. God's revealing it beforehand. It'll be very close. And our president is blind to it, sorry to tell you. And that's why it's got so close.
Wow, Christy. You know, it's been a while since I've looked at that footage.
Crazy.
But I do remember it very clearly. And it never, I was never quite sure where to put it.
Same.
But I know that today, you know, we're looking at some of the things going on. And when we're looking back at the timeline, this gets very interesting. So share some more.
Okay, so
with us, Christy.
Firstly, Donna, I was there that day. I was at the Den. I was living with your parents that year in 2010.
Right.
So I was at the Den, and I remember hearing this and thinking, good Lord Almighty, what on earth does any of this mean? And I just thought, okay, you know, like I did so often when he was talking about this, but what he saw clearly is a White House table, Western and Middle Eastern clothing, a hidden plot, Israel at the center, and both a betrayer and a deliverer present in the same environment. So now we're going to build this narrative across 16 years because you can trace these table moments. What we see here, the table years, which is the Obama era, the Iran deal, we're seeing that in the years after this word, the US moved deeper into table diplomacy with Iran. And in 2015, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action was finalized, the Iran nuclear deal. That deal became one of the defining Middle East policy flashpoints of the last decade. Many analysts considered this the empowering of Iran and led to its growth as a power in the region, especially the satellite powers of both Hamas and Hezbollah, the major threats that surrounded and directly threatened Israel. So from a prophetic lens, we can trace it like this. The table looked diplomatic, but the region stayed dangerous. Israel remained the focal point, and the question became, is this peace or is it cover for something hidden? Now we fast forward from 2017 to 2020, the Trump era, pressure and realignment. Under Donald Trump, the US withdrew from the JCPOA in 2018, and that shift changed the entire posture from deal first to pressure first. Then in 2020, we see the Abraham Accords were signed at the White House, reshaping regional alliances around Israel, and Iran's Quds Force leader, Qasem Soleimani, was killed in a US strike, escalating direct confrontation risk. And so for the first time in decades, multiple Arab nations, we see them normalizing relations with Israel, the UAE, Bahrain, Morocco, Sudan. This is a prophetic shift at the table of kings. The Middle East begins realigning around Israel, not against Israel. While Iran plots, God is building alliances. Then we see from 2021 to 2023, Iran working through proxies. Without declaring formal war, Iran increases pressure through Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, militias in Syria and Iraq, and the Houthis in Yemen. These are the little wars that Kim described, not official wars, but fierce, constant regional conflicts centered on Israel and US interests. Then obviously we see what happens October 7th, 2023. Hamas attacks Israel, and this becomes a turning point. Israel is attacked brutally. The Middle East ignites. Iran's fingerprints are visible through its proxies. The US moves naval assets and military posture into the region. The table Kim saw is no longer symbolic, it's active. Then we look from 2024, where President Trump returns to office. This is critical to the prophecy. Kim said at the table is a betrayer, but also a deliverer. Under Trump's return, there is unapologetic support for Israel, clear posture toward Iran, rebuilding differences, no more blindness at the table. This tone shifts from passive diplomacy to strength-based diplomacy. Very important. And then from 2025, we see that regional pressures building. We see ongoing Israeli operations against Hamas and Hezbollah, Iran testing boundaries through its proxies, the US reinforcing alliances, quiet cooperation between Israel and Arab nations shaped by the Abraham Accords, and the alliances formed in 2020 are now strategic assets. Now, the next question is this: from 2026 until right now, just this week, the US and Iran are meeting for nuclear talks in Istanbul. Trump's envoy is meeting with Netanyahu in Israel. There are naval drills and military posture in the region, and Iran issuing threats. This is the table of kings that Kim described. Western clothing, Middle Eastern clothing, Israel central, hidden motives, danger, tension, opportunity. This is where we see such a similarity to Esther. In Esther, the book of Esther, which we all know, the threat is legal, official, and hidden behind power. But God exposes it, flips it and uses the enemy's own instrument against him. That's why Kim was saying Haman was hanged on the gallows. There's a prophetic theme here, which is reversal. So you can literally see the prophecy table evolving. We see deal frameworks. We see pressure campaigns, new alliances forming around Israel, and mounting conflict with Iran and its proxies. Now, Kim says, it gets close, it gets disguised, but it doesn't succeed. And so we've got another clip to play for you. Again, stay with us. There's so much power here, it's actually unbelievable. So we're going to go back to March 25th of 2010 for a couple of moments to listen to what else it is that Kim saw. Let's go to that now.
Then I saw something that really also shook me. I saw, as a result of this whole thing, I saw 10 wars that would take place. Little wars. When I say a little war, is there such a thing as a little war? But they are short-lived wars, but they are very fierce. And I saw these 10 battles taking place until the enemies of Israel and the United States had to drop their weapons and give in. But it would take 10 fierce battles. And that's all I can say. It was such a fierce, there were such fierce battles, all because of this one moment that I saw. There's betrayal in the White House. It's going to hurt the president. It's going to hurt many, many people that are close to him. But God will rescue. Now, that's all. See, God's desire is always to rescue his people. You know, I hear these prophets of doom saying, you know, let's get out of here. Let the rapture take place. Let's get off this evil earth so that the devil can have his one final blow. The trouble is, to get rid of us is what he wants. He wants you out of here. And I'm not saying there's no rapture or there's no second coming. That's all going to happen. But at this very moment, God needs us. God needs us. He needs the Holy Spirit present in our lives on this earth to expel these forces of darkness, to expel the evil that is trying to come against this nation. And so I was consumed the entire day. At one stage, I wept because I realized that the enemy wants to take away the godliness in this nation. We all know it. You can watch the news media. You can hear the stuff. They hate us. They hate godliness. And yet God said to me, the betrayer, as a result of it, there will be an incredible breakthrough. Now, why would I say this? The word crisis, now, you know, we're hearing the word crisis used all the time. We're in an economic crisis and a social crisis. And yes, we're in a crisis. But I want to explain to you what the word crisis means. The word crisis in Chinese is explained with two words, which President John F. Kennedy explained to us in one of his speeches. Danger and opportunity. So the word crisis in Chinese explained, they always have two words, potential danger and hidden opportunity. That's how stupid the devil is. There is a potential danger, but in every potential danger is a hidden opportunity. And that's what God's going to bring out of this. An attack against this nation, attack against Israel, and they don't even know what's happening.
This is certainly prophecy.
It's wild.
In a different way. It's in a different way, because when he's sitting there and he's explaining it like that, you begin to actually see moments, especially in the past 10 years.
Yes.
And it's lining up perfectly with this. And this isn't finished yet. We aren't actually at the end of what he saw.
Not.
And you know what? One thing we know is that there have been some fierce conflicts over the past 16 years since he prophesied that. We've had the ISIS era.
Yes.
Syria, Libya, ongoing counter-terror theaters and proxy wars and escalations.
Yes.
But I want to hear the story of how you Googled, after reading in the prophecy database, this prophecy.
Yes.
A prophetic moment, I suppose you could call it. What happened? Tell us what happened. You looked up Because you said the 10 short wars,
yes.
right?
So what happened is I was looking, Donna, for, okay, we're always doing this, you and I, we're up and down. What are we going to do on a Wednesday? There's so much prophecy to choose from. But I looked at this one and I thought, okay. And then I saw that he said there's going to be 10 wars. And I thought, I wonder how many wars and conflicts the U.S. has been involved in since March of 2010. And when I looked it up, I was completely blown away. And this is where we see that prophecy is pattern-based. And that really got me. Kim doesn't say operation name. He says 10 fierce battles that build pressure until enemies drop their weapons. But here, we're going to show you this list from 2010 through to today. Okay, so since March 2010, the United States has been involved in several major officially named military operations and ongoing forever wars, primarily focused on counterterrorism in the Middle East and Africa. While the U.S. has not officially declared war against another nation since 1941, Congress has authorized or funded multiple sustained combat operations. And here are the key conflicts and military interventions involving the U.S. since March 2010, and they include the war in Afghanistan, Operation Enduring Sentinel, OES, while major combat operations ended in 2014 and the overall war concluded with the withdrawal of troops in August 2021, the U.S. transitioned to over-the-horizon counter-terrorist operations starting in October 2021. Then we have Iraq with Operation New Dawn, which was 2010 to 2011. Following Operation Iraqi Freedom, this operation marked the final phase of U.S. combat operations, ending with the withdrawal of U.S. forces in December 2011. Then we have the intervention in Libya in 2011. The US and NATO allies launched an air campaign to protect civilians from Muammar Gaddafi. Then we see intervention against the Islamic State. Operation Inherent Resolve from 2014 until present. A US-led coalition began airstrikes in Iraq and Syria against ISIS in August of 2014, continuing to support local partners. Then we see the Syrian civil war from 2014 to the present. Beyond fighting ISIS, the US has conducted targeted strikes against the Syrian government and supported opposition forces. Then we see the intervention in Somalia from 2007 until present. The U.S. has maintained an ongoing campaign of airstrikes and special operations against al-Shabaab militants, with redeployments of troops occurring as recently as 2022. Then we see the Yemeni civil war from 2015 to the present. The U.S. has provided intelligence, logistics, and support to the Saudi-led coalition against Houthi rebels. Then we see the war in northwest Pakistan from 2004 to 2018. Extensive drone strikes targeted Taliban and al-Qaeda fighters. And then we see intervention against the Lord's Resistance Army from 2011 to 2017, with U.S. Special Forces assisted regional partners in Uganda and neighboring countries. And as of 2025 and 2026, we're looking to Iran. So we can see these last 16 years where America has been pulled repeatedly into conflict. Israel has been repeatedly targeted. Iran has repeatedly been operating through its proxies. And this region is repeatedly boiling at the table of kings. And so when we arrive at today, we see direct diplomacy resuming, strong U.S. warnings, naval posture, Israel meetings, regional stakeholders gathering in Turkey. And this is why we see that prayer matters. Daniel prayed during varying empires that were ruling. Esther interceded during political plots. Nehemiah rebuilt while the enemies threatened. And so God doesn't reveal this to make us panic. He reveals it to make us purposeful. And I'm going to take this moment right now to say that we need to listen to Kim's words again, where he says God needs us at this very moment. And that's the prophetic heartbeat. So this is where we see it. If God reveals, we respond. If God warns, we pray. If God exposes, we stand. If God positions Israel at the center, we bless Israel. The Bible says, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And it also says that God blesses those who bless Israel. So today we're going to do two things. We're going to pray for protection, for exposure, for peace through strength, and for God to scatter hidden plots. And we're going to sow, because this ministry exists to keep truth and prophetic discernment going forward. And so I'm encouraging you today, House of Destiny, when you're seeing more clearly because of what it is that we're able to bring here, standing strong, staying anchored in God's perspective, I'm inviting you to give. I'm inviting you. There's a red link below your player that you can click to sow, that you can text your offering and you can call it in. But I'm going to pray now, and I'm also going to encourage you to join our prayer meetings on Tuesday nights at 5 p.m. Pacific. It really is a powerful time together, and we're getting these incredible miracles that are taking place that we're seeing God really moving. But I'm going to pray, and as I pray, we're going to receive the offering, and then we're going to go straight into the next moment with Kim. Again, from March 25th, it's a much shorter moment, but as I pray, let your faith be stirred. Father, I pray for every person who's giving today, every person who's choosing to say, I'm going to sow into the future, I'm going to sow into destiny, I'm going to sow into faith. I pray that you would bless every single one of them, and that as every person chooses to stand and bless Israel, even in the face of vicious anti-Semitism, I ask that your blessing would be poured out upon them. I thank you for your word, which says, a generous man will prosper, and he who refreshes others will himself be refreshed. I pray that every person who has a need, as they sow, you would meet that need and meet them where they're at. And we thank you for this in Jesus' name. Now, as we go to this next moment of Kim, continue to sow, continue to give, and let your heart be stirred. Let's go to Kim again.
I want to encourage you at this very moment. Do not be discouraged. I see betrayal. I even see a betrayal internally. But God said, I'm watching over it. And that same noose, that same gallows is going to be used against the enemy. So let's pray together. Everyone, let's pray together. Let's believe God. Let's believe Him that He'll take this vision that He gave me and give us faith to fight through and to pray His will be done. Because He will bring about unrealized destiny.
You know what, it makes me miss my dad when I see
so much
that way. You know, when he's just talking, you know, when he's prophesying and he's in it, it's different. But when he starts to just be more relaxed the way this was presented, it always makes me miss him.
Me too, so much.
It would be lovely if he was he was here with us through this. But you know what? God knows what He's doing, doesn't He, Christy?
He really does. He really does. And we've been given this as a gift. And you know what your dad said there, God said, I'm watching over it. You know, we're not watching this like a movie. We're watching this as believers with authority. And again, your dad tying all of this in back to Esther, speaking about a reversal. At times, Donna, we've spoken about this, how despondent we felt, how downcast we felt. But this broadcast, I know it was a little different today, but when you actually think about the fact that what God showed Kim has happened, and we're right towards the end of that one section that God showed him, but this table, there being both a betrayer and a deliverer at the same table, when we look at the facts of what's gone on over the last 16 years, I mean, it is absolutely mind-blowing. And we see so clearly that God's hand is in all of this, and that is what gives us faith and hope to continue.
I'm also quite encouraged about the references to Esther, Haman, and Mordecai. I'm just throwing that in there right now because I'm just realizing, you know, we have had the Esther prophecy that we've been following for so long. And, you know, in this moment in time, here we are watching so much prophecy be fulfilled, especially in the region of Iran, which is where Esther was, as well as Mordecai and Haman and Daniel. And so it's very important to be paying attention to spiritually that region as well. It all ties together. And so, you know, what we've watched tonight is not just history. We are watching a prophetic timeline. And that's something we've been working on here at the House of Destiny, is looking now at the timelines, because we have so many prophecies fulfilled, and we understand as we see them culminating and connecting in ways we never expected, we can understand that it is truly a tapestry, that a prophetic tapestry woven by God through my Father, and we are now carrying it and sharing these things with everybody. And again, not to frighten anyone, but to give you hope and to give understanding of what God is doing in this hour. And so I'm very grateful, Christy, that you thought to do that. I think God did that through you.
I think so too, because that definitely didn't just come out my brain. I'll tell you that much. And Donnie, something I just want to tell everybody, we're going to dive deeper now into the partner segment with things that we couldn't say on this broadcast because we're trying not to get banned. And so we're going to go even deeper now and even more controversial, should I say. There's a lot of things that we want to be able to say that we can't necessarily say on this broadcast. But for those of you that are partners, Donna, I'll let you tell them about that. But I'm really encouraging you to stick around for the partner segment. And if you're not a partner, to become one, because this partner segment today is going to be, we're going to be talking about behind the curtain and what happened when America sat at the table with Iran, and definitely saying things that would get us into trouble. So I'm encouraging you to join us there on the House of Destiny, where we can say what we want, because they can't ban us from here, can they?
No. So if you are not a Vault partner, you can become one now. Just look on the screen, and the information is there for you. And I really encourage you to join. It's absolutely worth it. And not only do you have an upgraded prophecy database in the partner section, but you also have these extra moments with me and Christy, as well as School of the Prophets. There is so much back there. Anybody who's already a partner can tell you if you ask them. But do join if you're not a partner. If you are, we're going to say goodbye to you here, and Christy and I will continue this conversation over there. So by the time you're watching this, if you're a partner, you can just go right in and see the rest of our conversation. So to everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much, Christy, for sharing this with us. I think it's very important for us to be analyzing these things this way. And so again, thank you for joining us. And we will see you next week on Analysis.
Yes.
Hello, friends. I'm Donna Clement Petrushka, and I am honored to invite you to something truly extraordinary, the Kim Clement Prophecy Vault. Now you can gain unprecedented access to my father's entire digitized video archive. Every prophetic moment, every powerful teaching, every anointed worship session is now available to you in the Prophecy Vault. Plus, I'm excited to share that my dad's special School of the Prophets teachings are included, offering you deep, transformative lessons on hearing God's voice and understanding his revelations. Your partnership is crucial. Not only will you gain access to these incredible resources, but you'll also help us continue the vital work of preserving, digitizing, and adding new Kim Clement material to the archives. I'm inviting you to step into the Kim Clement Prophecy Vault. Let's embark on this journey of revelation together, and I can't wait to see you inside. We have Andrew Sorcini from Beverly Hills Precious Metals with us today. Someone has a 401k. Can they take some of that and purchase gold as an investment for their future?
They can, and it's a great way to do it, because if you have an IRA, a government TSP account, a 401k from a company that you used to work at but don't work at anymore, or you still work at the company and you're over 59 and a half, these can be rolled over into a precious metals IRA. And if you were to speak to your financial advisor about it, they'll tell you, oh, this is a taxable event. They'll tell you things like gold and silver are volatile. But really, the thing is, they don't want you to get into precious metals because it doesn't benefit them monetarily. I'm here to tell you that your accounts can be rolled into a precious metals IRA without it being a taxable event. You would own real gold and silver that is stored in a third-party depository that's insured in a lockbox with your name on it.
So if someone goes to bh-pm.com, is that the correct website? Okay, and that's going to be on the bottom of the screen. If they go there today, what do they need to do?
Okay, so there's an online form there, and the form, almost every page on the website has the online form. So you just fill in your first name, last name, email address, telephone number, say that Kim Clement sent you, or the House of Destiny. We'll know what you mean. And in the notes section, be as detailed as you can. Sometimes people put things in there like, I'm a complete novice. I really don't understand precious metals. I've been wanting to understand. I want to invest, but really I need more information first. Then put that in there. if you're someone that's been investing in gold and silver for years and really don't need a consultation, you just want to check prices, then put that in there.
Everybody watching, if you are interested in precious metals, this is where you want to go. Thanks again.
Thank you.